Okay, so this is the fourth part of the video, of the presentation. And we now are going to talk about what we're working on and what are the next things we want to do and some ideas we have. So the first thing we are going to add right now, actually, as I said before, it's in testing, is the remote monitoring for the compatible access points based on SMP. And that will be the base to add on-event alerts. An access point dies, we send an email. Hey, the access point died. Then we want to add more access point devices. As Kelly was saying before, what we really want to do is to provide a portfolio of access points from the low end to something better, because we want to give the freedom to pick your favorite access point model. For example, we need to add more ceiling mounting access points. We want to add more PoE access points. We want to add access points with support for external radius servers. Just examples. But I really like to know if you have some access point you think might really fit well with this kind of application and system.
Are you planning on adding features that are specific to like OpenWRT being deployed on the AP, right? Like if you want to do radius support, will it require OpenWRT or something along those lines?
I didn't really get it. You mean specific for OpenWRT?
No, I'm talking about how do you envision adding features with limited firmware on existing APs without reflashing, right? Or are you planning on hitting a mark at some point where you go, well, in order to support X, Y, or Z feature, you're going to need to have a Tanaza firmware on the AP?
Right, that's a good question. I think that if we don't flash the device, we can go up to one point. After that, you need to flash it. So, yes, we will need to do that if you want to go to a second step. A thing we want to add is the quick replacement wizard. The idea is I have an access point I don't like more. I have a broken access point. I just want to add a new one, disconnect the other one, and apply the old configuration. So it's just a wizard. In one shot, you will be able to remove one, apply, and attach a new one. Tanaza agent as OpenWRT. We have two guys in the R&D that are crazy. They want to do this, and they're now working on it. The idea is, as 99% of the value of what we do is in the cloud, we are okay with releasing the agent for free. So it will be possible to flash your OpenWRT access point at runtime, and you will be able to add the Tanaza Cloud capabilities. So you just keep your customized OpenWRT. And this way, we don't add any limitation. Then we want to add a very simple captive portal for the hotel applications. Very simple. We will also support the external ones because we don't want to add too many features. A simple captive portal is enough. Otherwise,
the captive portal resides on the AP itself. So that is what you want to keep it as simple as like.
Right. The firewall will be there. Well, the stop.
Yeah.
And if you want to do something more complex with an external one, you just need to use a third-party access point with radius capabilities, and you're ready to go.
On the captive portal, do you meet regulations in the EU about tracking?
Regulation about tracking, sorry?
Yeah, so your captive portals, if you have a hotspot, have to remember and track MAC addresses to IP addresses and who was on.
Right, yeah. Actually, the captive portal feature is something we are designing, but yes, we will have to be compliant with all the regulations. Yeah. After that, VLAN and PPOE, we already are needing that for one installation, which forced us to implement it, but it's in a kind of beta. The idea is we need that to provide secure guest access. Then what we want to do regarding the more web part of the service is the integration as a community. So the single sign-on, the possibility to exchange the access between system integrators so that you can say, hey, please help me. I need help on my network because you are more expert than me. So we really want to build a tool that will be used by everybody to increase the efficiency. We can use this to allow the system integrators to help each other increase efficiency. This is the final goal of this. Right, so in a longer term, the ideas that we have, some of these are things we really want to do. Some others are like crazy ideas. I will not tell you the difference. Which ones, I mean. So the first one is the Tanaza agent as standalone box. We discarded that in the beginning because we said we are cloud. We don't want to ship anything with no boxes. But then what happened? Someone said, I don't want a server where to install a device. An agent. I don't want to reflash a device, so that's the only possibility. They don't want to have things installed on their servers. So that's a thing that many customers are requesting.
Couldn't you possibly have the remote host do the installations for you with Flash?
Say again, sorry?
The remote host, where you're installing an agent on the remote host, couldn't you possibly use that to push out any firmware flashes that you want to do on individual devices? So when a user signs up, you can use their host that they're logging into the website from as a staging host to
For
push
the
out
flash update.
to flash it.
Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
It's the accent.
No, it's my English is not so good.
And so how you have the website set up today where when you log in and you go and you say I'm going to add an access point and it downloads the agents through the browser onto the user's laptop to
Yep.
then get your network or get the access point added and configured, couldn't you do the same thing for modifying and changing that firmware on that access point so that you could push your open word image or your Tanaza image onto
All right, okay, sorry.
correct?
Actually, someone asked this to us. Remotely flash any device. The idea is if we can be compliant with the security check that are done on a firmware when you want to apply a new firmware, we could in theory be able to do that. I wrote very complex because it's really complex to do that. So it's something we have in mind. It would be really cool. We don't know if it's really feasible on an economic standpoint, but that's something that it's a good idea, I think.
Do you have an option from a business model standpoint to sell me as a VAR my own Tanaza system, so I own it, and they don't go to your cloud, they go to my cloud?
Yeah, we call this the private cloud. That's interesting. On our perspective, we are trying to have one cloud, but technically speaking, yeah, no problem. We could do that. We're not afraid that some secrets are stolen. On a business model perspective, that's something we are thinking about but haven't done yet. For example, we had a guy from India claiming to be a system integrator, a VAR, having 30% of the market in India, and he really wanted his private cloud. So we're thinking about it. Yeah, in theory it's possible. No, not difficult.
How do you store everything? That brings up a point. How do you store everything from each configuration? So Chris has his account. He sets it up with his pre-shared keys and all of his SSIDs. I've got my account. Is that data all encrypted in a database where there's? I mean, have you checked and gone through the tools or the companies that will check your source code and check to make sure that you don't have any cross-scripting errors where I could get in and get Chris's pre-shared keys and everything? Or?
Yeah, that thing is really something we need to be sure of. Otherwise, the entire system and concept will crash. So we are really aware of these risks, the risk of the cloud basically, and we have a database which is encrypted. And I think that in a couple of months we will do something more here because the system is migrating from one single database system to a cluster, and that thing we are motivated, that issue. Okay.
One more question before we
Yeah.
How many of your customers, people who are using this, sell multiple vendors' hardware to their customers? I can see if I had a customer who already had a TP-Link and a D-Link and a Netgear, and I come in after the fact and I can say, oh, I have this cool service that can babysit what you have. But if I'm selling this I want to sell it to a new customer and replace all equipment. I'll either go all Ubiquity or all Netgear or all Ingenious, and they already have their own management platforms. So you're competing with Ubiquity's own management.
Right. That's correct. We have no integrator saying I will sell 3 different models to the same person. Maybe different models among different customers in the time they change. That's correct. We don't think we create value there. We think we create value because you can, with time, feel free to change the devices if you want. So the idea is I give you a tool that will allow you to stay all the time your favorite device. Even if you change that in your mind, we will follow you.
Well, I can see where you might have a location that's halfway across the country that you don't want to, that their AP just burned up. And they need to run to Best Buy and grab a new AP, whatever they grab off the shelf, they want to take it in and then you can push your config back down onto it. I mean, that makes sense.
Okay.
Or in, pardon me, or in school districts where, you know, a lot of the Ubiquity or Ingenious gear is used, you know, everybody knows that budgets are shrinking and you can't necessarily roll out a full upgrade at once. This would be the perfect scenario where you would perhaps replace some but not others. And maybe there's a new model that you choose to move to or a new vendor.
Yeah, makes sense. Good. Thank you for the question. Any other questions? Yeah, there is the API idea. Some customer, I will tell you who, after with camera off, asked to develop the APIs because they want to configure and test multiple devices, actually hundreds of devices, with their systems to be sure that they can do automatic testing in an efficient way. So this is something we really didn't think could be useful in the beginning, but again, customer really surprises us. The last point is, well, the crowdsourcing thing is something really interesting. I already said it before. The problem with connectors is that I think that's our really core competence, because the process of developing a connector for a specific model was really chaotic in the beginning, like a couple of months to make one working. Because we couldn't do any assumption, but we had to do assumptions. Then every time we added a new model, some assumption was not respected, so we had to change assumptions. And we are kind of procuring a learning curve. We think we are almost at half of it. And we are structuring the process of developing connectors. And when we will get to a point that we are confident with it and it will be a procedure, we will be able to say, hey, do you have an access point we don't support? No problem. Just download the SDK or do it online, write your Lua scripting, and then you're ready to go. So that's something we think in the long term will be interesting. In the end, our system is really a tool to configure things. So you could, in theory, configure anything from this platform. And that's why what we want to do is also add other families of devices, like switches, for example, to be able to configure VLANs and provide a one-stop shop, well, a one-stop solution for guest access with some security. The last point is the IP conflict avoidance. Actually, if you have both 10 netgears like this and you connect all of them, they will be in conflict. So one thing we can do, in theory, and I'd really like to know what you think about it, is to implement an IP conflict mechanism. We know it can work. We already tried it. We basically force the ARP table and can connect each single device one after the other. So the idea is you connect the device, it's revealed to be in conflict, then you can force, connect to it, change the IP address, and go to the other one. So in theory, you could ship a box of netgears to a customer, say him or his guys to do all the cabling stuff, and all the intelligent part, the networking configuration part, you can do it remotely. So when we think about forcing the ARP on a box, Tanaza box, it's okay. On an access point Tanaza, it's okay. But if we think about doing it on a server, I would like to know what you think, because it's really something not really common in networking, I would say.
You might be able to get away with it with your smaller customers because they might not know any better.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's true.
I think larger customer bases, that might be frowned upon.
Yeah, but that's not his target audience.
Exactly.
I mean, that's.
Exactly.
Okay, if you don't have any other question, I go to the last slide. So thank you very much to everybody. And okay,
Thank you.